Neisau Bula. My name is Neisau Tuidraki, and we're carrying on with our series here, interviewing the crew behind the Soli Bula animated film. Joining me today is Dave Lavaki. Dave is in charge of Foley. Dave, how's it going, gang?
Sad, man.
Maybe if you could just tell us what exactly is Foley?
Okay, so Foley is basically placing sound effects or emphasizing a visual scene with the use of sound effects. I think is the best way to describe it. So it's pretty much like like just enhancing some of the things. Normally, in like a traditional movie, you'll have Foley as well, where they just try and enhance some of the things. Where it's like if they want to exaggerate the sound of a punch, it's like so what they'll do is they'll record something like that underneath it, and like layer it into the actual original sound, and then that becomes the sound effect. So that's kind of Foley. You see it a lot in I like to think about like old kung fu movies and stuff, where they have a team just kind of sitting there and looking at a scene, and when they're dubbing the movie in English, they're sitting there looking at the scene and trying to figure out, okay, what's this gonna look like, and then they're recording sounds as the visuals are going on, and so they're doing the whole and then they're like like pulling fabric and making all this like kind of sounds and stuff. So it's weird, man, but Foley really excites me. I think sound in general is quite cool. Like if you know how to use, like if you know how to enhance a scene, or enhance anything that is happening visually, that's quite that to me, that stuff is really exciting. It's I think Meli's project is a real star. It's a real star, and I think being able to come in and possibly do some stuff to just give it a bit more kind of feel is a really cool role and a really cool way to be involved in the project. Especially if you're into that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I remember watching something in particular, like the sound people, like on TikTok of all places, and I saw this particular woman. She does what she does, and she's got her whole studios set up. And then I saw her doing the hoof sounds or the galloping sounds, and she was using like coconut shells, lambilos. I saw. I was like, oh my gosh. That is so cool. Like I was like looking at her, I was like, hey, I want to try that. Does the sound actually sound like that? And I actually went and looked for my husband's bilos and tried it. So I know that's pretty awesome. So you guys have been working on this tirelessly and in your own bubbles and shells during lockdown. So how are you doing that? I mean, like, how's that been going?
It's been interesting. Like I said, I think the way Meli selected his crew is quite, it's a lot of gang that can kind of work on their own and manage stuff on their own and are used to kind of doing the things on their own. So we all kind of collaborate, and we all in general, like I mean, besides this project, like I've worked with Meli on a bunch of things, and it's the exchange a lot of times is quite similar to, you kind of like we'll have these sit downs and these discussions and these kind of plans, but then it's really on you to kind of go and manage your stuff and go and do your thing on your own. So like there's projects that we'll work on where Meli might be doing graphics, or like with Nox, like when like I've collaborated with Nox on things as well, and like if Nox is working on music, like we kind of sit down and discuss the idea, and then it's up to the person to come back with their own interpretation of that idea, and then they come and meet you, like which is really cool because it's kind of I think there's a nice amount of actual space that we share where we discuss this stuff and try and figure it out, and but there's also a lot of times where we can just sit down and be our own little creative selves, and bring that to kind of the project, if that makes sense.
No, that does. I mean, I guess I just to ask and like elaborate a bit on your answer there. You said that you come together to talk about your stuff, and you're also used to working with each other. I mean, this is being done virtually now rather than in person. Does that, does that detract from, like bouncing off each other? How has that been?
Um, Good question. Man, honestly, I think the way everything has happened, just like changing everything into like, like a virtual kind of world, like how quickly we've adopted Zoom and stuff like that. It's not ideal, but it's at the same time, it's not like we've just kind of adapted and moved on. It's just we've just kind of evolved with the way the situation is. Um, in all honesty, I think that we would have had like maybe a couple more face-to-face meetings, maybe, yeah, like a couple more face-to-face meetings about this stuff. I know at the very beginning when Meli first started discussing Soli Bula, like we would sit down, we'd have a coffee, we'd talk about it, we'd talk about this, we'd talk about other projects and stuff, and then we'd go off and do things, and then we'd come back, and then we might meet again and have another discussion. And that's normally how stuff would happen. Knox lives right next door to me. Like I think that the way we would have done some of this stuff, we would have probably sat down and like, like, okay, fine, we whack it together tonight, we drink grog or whatever, and kind of go through the process. But so yeah, like a little bit of that face-to-face stuff has kind of been taken away. But I think the thing is we're all, like we're all kind of grown up enough, and we're all managers of our own kind of spaces in our own rights, like that's what I was saying. Like I think the way Millie selected a team, he selected a team of freelancers and individuals that are used to managing their own stuff.
Yep.
So it's not really like getting that, like so while maybe some of this would have been more ideal to meet and discuss on, it is also a crew that just understands like we need to get this going. And that's what everyone has been doing, I think, in their own kind of rights and respect.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to sort of touch on that subject where, you're a group of individuals that are basically leaders in your own rights for your field. You've got your business first fighter, and like you're one of the our rap artists from Fiji. What what do you think this will do for the next generation of young Fijian creatives that go, that's something that I'd like to do, but it necessarily hasn't been done, So what do you think? What do you think Soli Bula is going to do for that next generation?
I think first and foremost is I think one is the project in itself is a blueprint of how you can get individual, like independent projects up and running. I think that people are going to look at this, and I know this for a fact because there's actually another project that I'm involved in right now, and they're looking at a lot of Soli Bula and what Meli's doing, and how the whole project is kind of being conducted, especially in this space and in this time. They're like not in a bad way, but they're taking some of the learnings from that. And so I think that's, to me, that's the biggest thing. I think that there's a lot of ideas, there's a lot of creatives in Fiji, there's a lot of practitioners that can make a lot of this stuff happen. We've got some really skilled people in the country. And I think like I said, like I think that one of the first things is this becomes a blueprint, like one of the ways in which you can, like get an independent kind of project going. You don't have to, like a lot of us have, might have a creative idea, you might have a short film script, you might have a, like a stage show, whatever it is. And the thing is, it's kind of just sitting there, somewhere idling in the background, and you're trying to figure out, okay, well, maybe one day someone might come and there might be a fund for it or grant for it or whatever. But what this is now is like, okay, you can actually present an idea to the open market of the world, and gang are willing to put money towards it. And so to me, that's really important. Like that's a blueprint. And like if you study the steps, like study the steps that Melly took, or you study like how this all kind of comes about and all, it's that to me that's one of the biggest things, because I'm also somebody that also creates content, and that's the thing that I find one is the most is probably the most fascinating thing out of all of this. Yeah?
Yeah.
There's still, and saying that, like, it's not like obviously this there's a lot of work that went into it before it got to a stage where you could go to Kickstarter and all that stuff, right? But but yeah, still, like, it's a like I said, it's a blueprint for me. That's a big one. The second one, I think, is it. I think it shows that, like, when we start to look at the team of writers and producers, like, like the like say, like Melly as a person that kind of wrote the entire thing, and then you've got gang that are drawing backgrounds, gang that are animating characters, gang that are producing the music, like all this kind of stuff right across the board. I think the thing is, and I know this from the music scene, what it allows as well is it allows people that might be working in these individual crafts to look at this and go, boy, there's a guy that actually just draws, like there's a guy that specializes in creating background, like that's an actual thing, or there's a guy that specializes in this thing, or there's a guy, like, or if somebody is sitting there thinking, man, you know what, I want to help market and promote and discuss stuff like this, they can look to a position, or like to the work that you're doing right now, Neisau, and say, man, you know what? Like, I want to be involved in projects like this from this kind of a level. And I think that that's what it does. It just allows a next generation of gang to say, boy, there's so many roles in this. And I think the one thing I like about it is in the way we do things in Fiji, we're so used to, and it's probably a Pacific thing, we're so used to multitasking and doing a lot of this stuff on our own. And I think, even in this crew, there's a lot of gang here that can do a lot of these different roles on their own. But one thing I like about the way this is done is it's structured quite nicely and formally, and how you would in a, like in what you call, like a proper wishful kind of scenario,
Yeah.
and it shows that yeah, that you have that can fulfill these different things. You don't just need to do like one person doing 3 jobs or 2 people doing 6 jobs or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's so good chatting with you about this stuff. When I talk to people about the movie Soli Bula itself, and like I give them basically the synopsis or the scenario, they're kind of shook about it. They're like, what, really? What's your favorite thing? I mean, like, what's your favorite thing about the Soli Bula story?
I think one of the reasons I personally like video and like filming stuff is because I've always been of this, like, I always felt like when we're trying to capture something culturally, we don't do it justice by just explaining it in words. And this has been one of the things that I still, like, when I was studying, when I was doing, like, when I was doing my studies at USP, like, it was one of the things that I was saying. I was like, to me, this is why the video has always been so important, because you're capturing a lot of the, like, body language and things like that can't be kind of articulated in writing. And I think, to me, one of the things is Soli Bula, like the main, like the character that kind of features in it, and what he goes through, and what he's willing to sacrifice. But like, he does it in a kind of, in my mind, the way I see the video, like, he does it with such honor and pride. It's like, it's quite a, for me, I really felt it. Like, I really got it. Like, I really, like, looked at it, and for the first time in my life, I understood that. The thing is, our company, we actually do quite a bit of work in heritage, and I do a lot of reading about this stuff, like just heritage work and history and things like that. And I never really kind of appreciated that, the formality, like when you look at what's happening in Soli Bula, this actual, like, the Soli Bula.
Yeah.
I always just looked at it from the way it was written, and a lot of it came from sort of the view of people that were observing, or from the view of the person that was like giving out the orders of what needed to be done. But when I watched this animation, when I saw the first draft, like, it was the first time for me to really connect with the person that was actually making the sacrifice. And that was like, like, I was like, well, that's crazy. Like, in my world, I'd never be able to I would never ever put myself in that person's shoes. But when I watched this reenactment of what actually used to happen in Fiji, like I really understood and appreciated and empathized with where that person was coming from, which
Yeah.
is quite crazy, because it's a cartoon, eh? But I was like, for me, when I see stuff like that, I don't know, like it really takes me back to things like, because I know that that's part of our history, and I know that a lot of us gang are here, like, because of sacrifices that our ancestors and things like, like a lot of people have made over the years. Eh? So for me, that was one of the things that I don't know, in general, like that kind of really drew me to it. I think that the way he, you know, he blended the modern day stuff with it in a lot of ways. When I look at it, it makes me think of what's that movie, Hunger Games?
Yeah.
Like where people are just kind of fascinated over other people's like like demise, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was quite fascinating, and like I started to see like the broadcasters on camera and stuff like that. Like I've actually been in some of those positions where I'm actually like filming rugby or something like that for Fiji One or whatever it is. And but it's just like when you look at that, I'm like, boy, it's funny. It's like I can see myself as one of the gang that like working a camera at an event like this. And it just I don't know. There's like so many layers to it. And I can literally go on about this thing for quite a while.
Yeah.
So I'll
No.
leave it at that.
I mean, like I'm listening to you talk about it as well, and I can actually connect with it because, like that Hunger Games connection that you made, like I remember seeing the first shots of the film, and I was kind of it, like I was like, oh my God, that went dark really quick, and it's
Mm.
also sort of like, there's a lot of self reflections that are going on as well, so quite excited about like about that finally making its way to the screen. I
Mm.
guess I wanted to touch on, you're the dad of two young boys, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
how is that going, like working in a bubble with the kids at home as well, like how are you balancing that?
Um, yeah, that's been interesting, I think is the way to put it. My wife has been working from home with me for the past 5 months. I think the thing is, for me, we've had practice over the past many years, because it's it's not like when the pandemic happened then I started working from home. I've been working from home for 7 years, over 7 years now. And we've had like one boy go from 2 years old to 9 years old in that time, and we've had another son be born and get up to 5. So like we have a space that we work in that's quite like we understand that once we're in here, this is our workspace, which is where I am right now. Um but in saying that, like we are always all around each other. Um so it does have its challenges, like I'm sure everybody else has had, but the sad thing is, like, Yvette, my wife, has been here to kind of deal with the gang when we have like when we're like, no, look, please, can you gang just go and do something outside in the yard while I
Absolutely.
sort out this stuff, like we need to record. I do a lot of work in sound, so a lot of times I have to go outside and just ask her, can you gang just please all be just care, just meditate on your life for a moment
Golden
while I just
span.
while I record this, whatever it is. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's like everyone else. It's had its challenges. I think we're quite lucky and blessed that we have a bit of a compound, and like a little bit of space where I know, like, the challenge for a lot of gang in the country has been like space. Like, I mean, Nisa, you know what it's like here.
Yeah.
And you can imagine some of the gang in a bit of a different situation, what they might be going through.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I guess working from home, the thing is we've had to make some adjustments this time, but we have had quite a bit of 7 years of practice. But
Absolutely.
yeah, this when the borders opened, we were just like, oh my god, everyone just go and do your own thing for like a day or so, like just everyone's go.
Okay, my final question for you tonight is, cliche, but words of wisdom, to young Fijian creatives who want to break in and do something like this, or find their way to that dream project? You know, words of wisdom.
Um, I, also cliche. I always go by the stuff that I listen to. One of my favorite producers, Dr. Dre, and all I can say is work on your craft, whatever it is. I think one thing about this group of gang is everyone here has spent a lot of time working on their craft. They're not really, like they just knew that this is what they like doing. They spent many, many, many hours and days and nights and weeks and months and years just working on getting better at it and better at it and better. Like yeah, they know how to do the administration side of it or whatever, but the priority was working on their craft. Like when you think of Melly and Tui and Clarence and all these gangs, Michael John, that's like decades of just like drawing things, and that's why they're able to do the stuff that they're doing right now. People aren't like investing in the project thinking, oh, you know what, Melly's a great administrator, that's why we should invest in this project. You know what I mean? Oh, you know what, I think Knox is a great, like, like he'll be great with the finance side of these things. No, they know that Knox is a musician, like he's a brilliant musician because he spent years and hours and he's really spent time on it. And so the thing is, like with most of the games in this crew, like I know them personally, and I know I've kind of seen the come up, I guess, in a way. And that's the thing that I know is like focus or like work on your craft, because a lot of gang work, like, how do I say? I think that one of the things nowadays is a lot of people work on visibility, or and you can phrase that however you want. This, but I think a lot of people work on visibility. I think that the important thing first is to work on your craft. Yeah. Visibility will come, like business or money or whatever you're trying to chase, like making it a sustainable career, that will come.
Yeah.
And it's so important now because now, like with the pandemic, one of the things is a lot of these kinds of opportunities and industries are going to open up. So everyone really needs to just work on their craft.
Yeah. So basically do the hard yards. Practice craft. Make sure it's of a good caliber. Your work will speak for itself.
Yeah. I mean, like where that's coming from too is like I've met gang that assume that, like, okay, like if you wanna work on music or you wanna work on whatever it is, like they start to look at the structure of say like an organization and how it needs to work, right? And they start to say, oh man, you know what, I need like I need somebody to manage me, like that kind of a thing. But really what the priority should be is like, look, dude, just try and perfect the guitar or try and perfect the whatever it is you're working on,
Yeah.
Like that stuff will come. All that other stuff will come. I mean, it's the same thing with us, like getting a business up and running. Like all we know is like all we're trying to do is make sure that we're good at providing the service and the content that we, like that we want to, like at trying to perfect that. And then later on when they start to tell us, okay, well, you need to understand tax and you need to understand finance and this and that, those things will sort itself out. The priority is to make sure you, like, if you're going to become a photographer, understand, just keep taking photos until you're like untouchable.
Yeah.
People, whatever it is that you work with.
Absolutely. Isa, thank you so much, Dave, for joining me tonight.
Nice.
I'm gonna lift this and like cheers to you.
I finished my bar,
so that's right. Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Dave. Thank you so much, and we'll catch up later. And all the best with the rest of the journey through the project.
Thanks so much, Denise.